It's cold in the corner, and you've curled yourself into the smallest shape your bones will allow. One shoulder against the wood, paneled wall, one hand tucked into the space between your thighs. The other rests unused on the windowsill, fingers curled as if they remember holding a rosary that's long since vanished. Wind whispers through the cracked glass above you. It sings low a soft breath beneath the shutters, like someone too tired to finish praying. You haven't moved for hours. Your ankles ache from being folded too long. Your knees protest the weight of silk, of brocade, of expectation. A heavy gown pools around your body like wilted petals, velvet above, linen underneath, and too many stays crisscrossing your ribs to let you truly exhale. Somewhere outside, a cartwheel creaks, a dog barks, then nothing again. That is how most nights feel now. Long threads of nothing, stitched with sharp, quiet aches. You are not a prisoner, but you are not free. Your bed is there 3 steps to your left, a tall, 4-posted thing with heavy curtains and a down-stuffed pillow that smells faintly of lavender and age. You could lie down if you wanted. You could stretch yourself full length into the shape of sleep if you dared. But you won't, because you know what happens when noblewomen sleep flat on their backs. And it has nothing to do with comfort, nothing to do with dreams. What secret would keep a woman from lying down? Night after night, for years, no one told you, not really. They just passed the habit like a lace ribbon from one wrist to the next. Sit. Rest your spine against a carved headboard or a cushioned chair. Tuck your chin, don't lean too far. Don't let your mouth fall open. Why? Because of vanity, decorum, old superstitions, or something darker, something so old it's forgotten even its own name. Your fingers twitch again on the windowsill. A gust of wind spills across your face, colder than before. It carries the scent of wood smoke, tallow, and something almost metallic. You're not supposed to ask questions, but you do, quietly, in the hollow of your throat. What are they afraid of, or who? You shift in your half, sleeping crouch, and feel the linen of your chemise stick to the sweat along your spine. Outside, the moon has disappeared. You are alone with the truth, and the silence it demands. Tell us where you're listening from, or what time your night begins. Story Body Part 1, the first time they made you sleep sitting up. It was a joke, or at least it was supposed to be. You were 12, thin wrists, too many freckles, a forehead that never stopped sweating beneath the wool coif they made you wear until your hair learns not to misbehave. Aunt Margareth had summoned you from the nursery wing. You remember the long walk through the stone corridor. Your slippers squeaked. So much for dignity. By the time you reached her chamber, your feet were numb. Her door stood open, as it always did when she was in one of her teaching moods. You stepped inside, curtsied too quickly, and waited. She didn't look up from her embroidery hoop. Her fingers moved with tight precision, a red thread dancing through ivory silk. Tonight, she said calmly, you'll practice sleeping upright. You blinked. Am I being punished? She smiled. No, you're being preserved. Preserved, like meat, like dried pears. You didn't ask. You just nodded and waited to understand. They gave you a high, backed chair with narrow arms and a cushion made of horsehair. Someone brought a stool for your feet, as if that would soften the blow. At first it was novel, new, strange enough to be amusing. You curled into a ball, then uncurl, then shifted sideways. Hours passed. Or maybe just minutes. Time has always moved differently in noble houses. Your eyes stung with effort. Your neck went soft and crooked, your chin bobbing toward your chest like a tired puppet. Somewhere around midnight, you gave up trying. When the dawn came, your body felt like stiff pastry layers folding against each other in the wrong places. Your first thought was, why would anyone do this on purpose? Your second, why did no one stop her? Later, you learned, not all lessons in nobility are verbal. Some are anatomical. Because here's the thing no one tells you. In the 16th century, nobility was fragile. Not just in the figurative sense. Literally, your bones were lighter, your food richer, your blood thinner, your skin paler. You didn't plow fields. You didn't carry water. Your spine was made for posing, not surviving, but beauty had rules. And one of them was death. When noblewomen lay flat, something strange happened. It didn't happen to everyone, but it happened often enough. Their faces changed, the blood pooled, the color drained. Their skin collapsed into itself, as if the structure underneath had softened overnight. Mothers whispered that it was sleep's fault, that lying flat invited illness, or spirits, or suffocation of the humors. But really, it was the corsets. You wore them all day, sometimes through the night, tightly laced, whalebone, iron hooks, linen so stiff it could stand on its own. When you lay down, all that pressure turned inward. Organs shifted, lungs compressed. The liver, swollen from a diet of veal and sugared almonds, would press upward into the ribcage. Some women never woke, but even more terrifying were the ones who did, because they looked older, not aged, just spoiled, as if the flesh had sagged in protest, and the body had begun to forget what it once was. They weren't allowed in court until the color returned, which meant weeks of sitting, upright, swaddled in veils and rouge. You remember one of them, Lady Danis, the cousin of a cousin, pale as moon milk and twice as soft. She came to supper one evening wrapped in 5 layers of lace, face painted to the eyes. She smiled too brightly, ate nothing, didn't blink, and when she rose to leave, her hands trembled. Later, they said she hadn't laid flat in 7 years. That night, you went back to your room and stuffed extra cushions behind your shoulders, just in case. You told yourself it was superstition, but your hands said otherwise. Your hands are maps. They remember the dirt. Even if the rest of you is taught to forget, tonight the fire has gone out again. No one came to check the embers. Servants are fewer these days. They've been sent elsewhere or buried quietly, behind churches without names. You press your feet to the flagstone floor. Cold, always cold. The blanket over your lap is embroidered with birds. They're stitched mid. Flight, wings open, eyes wide, caught forever in the space between departure and descent. Like you, they say sleeping upright protects your beauty, that it preserves the curve of your face and keeps death at arm's length. But you've seen what else it does, the long-term ache of it, the bowed backs of old duchesses, the bruised tailbones, the joints that forget how to bend the other way. And worse, the fear, the quiet, pressing fear that if you lie down, you won't be recognized when you rise, not by the mirror, not by your ladies, not by yourself. Some nights, you hear your own breath echo off the canopy above your bed. It sounds thin, like something borrowed. Your throat burns. You haven't spoken aloud in hours. There's a looking glass across the room. You avoid it. You don't want to see what you've become in this hunched, quiet shape. Because part of you believes what they told you, that noblewomen are delicate, that beauty must be protected, that death visits more eagerly when you're horizontal, but another part, the part that remembers dirt and sweat, and the way your grandmother used to sleep face down on straw. That part wonders what happens to a soul that's never allowed to lie flat. What does the spine forget when it's bent in fear for a lifetime? You close your eyes and listen to the wind, not for answers, just to know you're still here. But that wasn't even the worst part. The room hasn't changed, but the silence has. It's heavier now. Even the shadows feel stitched tighter, tucked neatly into corners, curled like cats behind furniture that hasn't moved in years. You sit still, too, on the padded bench beside the hearth, though the fire has long gone to sleep. Your skirts are arranged the way they taught you, layer upon layer, folds tucked in, legs crossed at the ankles, never the knees. That would wrinkle the fabric, and besides, the older women say it encourages poor circulation. Poor circulation, of course, is blamed for everything. Fainting spells, numb fingers, melancholy, infertility. Sudden death. You think of your cousin Margaret, how she slumped at Easter Mass last year. They whispered afterward that she'd caught a chill through the soles of her slippers, or that she'd reclined too fully during her midday rest. That was enough to frighten the entire house. No one reclined after that, not fully, and certainly not you. You shift slightly. Your spine grumbles in protest. A single pop escapes near your right shoulder blade, a soft, wet sound like fruit splitting open. No one hears it, but you do. and your body does. It remembers that you haven't slept properly, truly slept in what must be 3 years. The kind of sleep where your limbs fall slack, where your mouth softens, and your breath slows enough to be mistaken for death. The kind where you forget your name for a few precious hours. But sleep like that isn't elegant. It doesn't photograph well, not that anyone paints women in sleep anymore. You're meant to be seen alert. Awake, posed, even in rest, the nobility are required to perform, because beauty was your birthright, but also your burden. They tell you it's tradition, that noble women have always slept sitting up. But you know that's not true. You've seen paintings older than your great-grandmother's time. Women lying flat, half-naked, bellies round with sleep. They look soft in those canvases, sleepy-eyed and unafraid. So, what changed? The answer is pressed into every stitch of your bodice. The rise of fashion. Real fashion, the kind that rewrote the shape of a woman from the inside out. It wasn't just about corsets. It was about control. The 16th century gave you new fabrics, new silhouettes, new rules. A face was to be egg-shaped, cheeks pale, lips small, and under no circumstance should a noblewoman wake looking rumpled, so they invented ways to prevent it, not just sitting upright, but sleeping in specific postures, chin slightly dropped, spine gently supported, arms folded over the lap, hands visible, a display of modesty even in unconsciousness. There were devices, hard-backed cushions sewn with wooden slats, linen night, hoods that kept hair perfectly coiled, slumber stools, chin, rests, arm girdles to keep the elbows in place. Some were padded. Most were not. You remember the first time you saw a night support up close. It belonged to Lady Imelda. She let you touch it. It was narrow carved walnut wrapped in a velvet slipcover, with thin metal rods on either side that propped her head just so. Not quite vertical, but enough to keep her from sagging. She claimed it was comfortable. She lied. Because the truth is beauty was never about comfort. Not for women. It was about survival. You try not to think about the day you fainted. It's been nearly 6 months. No one speaks of it now. You've played your part, bowed your head, smiled during prayer, resumed your upright posture without complaint, but the memory lives inside your spine. It had been an ordinary morning. Chill in the air, laces drawn too tight, breakfast skipped because of fasting, and you, exhausted, you thought, just a moment to lie down. You slipped into the tapestry room. Drapes drawn, sunlight like honey on the floorboards. You found the smallest couch, hardly more than a window seat, and let yourself recline. Just enough to let your head tilt back, just enough to stop fighting. When you woke, you were surrounded. 3 maids, the steward, and someone's confessor, all staring down at you as if you'd committed treason. You'd been asleep for 2 hours, and when they saw your face, they gasped, not in horror, in disappointment. Your cheekbones had softened, your jaw slackened, your eyes swollen in their corners like a child's. Someone whispered, "She looks common." That word cut deeper than any accusation. Common, like someone who eats turnips with her fingers, who runs in bare feet through grass, who sleeps flat because she must not, because she dares. The next morning you received a gift, a custom night rest. Lacquered pine, blue velvet, a silver hook to keep it in place behind your ears. You nodded and thanked them, then vomited after the door closed. It's late now, too late to be still awake, but your body is used to this. Used to the ache that blooms beneath your shoulder blades, used to the dryness behind your eyes, used to the thin, watery breath that flutters against the bones of your corset. You are not in danger. Not the kind that bleeds, but you are unraveling, piece by piece. Your thoughts drift to the older women in the house, the dowagers, the widows, the ones who no longer smile except in portraits. Do they still sleep upright? Even now, even when no one is looking, or have they earned the right to lie down at last? You think of Lady Honora, who hasn't left her room in 3 seasons. They say her legs have gone soft, that her knees no longer bend properly. And Lady Celeste, who wears gloves even in sleep to hide the shaking. You wonder, did they make the same choices, or did the choices make them? You rise slowly, clutching the carved finial beside you. The floor creaks beneath your slippers. Dust dances in the moonlight. The hem of your nightgown trails like fog behind you. At the mirror you pause. The face that greets you is not quite yours. The lines are too subtle to name. But they are there, an extra shadow beneath one eye, a tightness at the corners of your mouth, a softness in the chin that wasn't there last winter. You try to smile. It looks strange, forced, a muscle memory with no root. And behind your reflection, there's the bed, tall, waiting, curtain drawn back like an open arm. It hasn't held your full weight in over a year, and still, it tempts you, not for comfort, not for rebellion, but because part of you remembers a time when rest did not require explanation. A time before you inherited someone else's fears, before pillows became tools of performance, before sleep became a threat. You take a step forward, then another. The mattress breathes softly as you sit on the edge. You don't lie back, not yet, but your hand sinks into the coverlet, warm, soft, familiar, and suddenly you want to cry. Not because of grief, not even exhaustion, but because lying down just imagining it feels like the most forbidden thing you could do. The weight of expectation pulls at your spine, but your body leans anyway. A small tilt, a humble rebellion, your head touches the pillow, eyes flutter closed, and just before sleep can take you fully a knock. 3 soft taps on the door, not urgent, not loud, but real. You freeze. Because no one knocks at this hour unless, but that is a story for tomorrow night. 3 soft knocks. You don't move, not even to breathe. The pillow cradles your skull like a secret you weren't meant to remember. The weight of your hair presses behind one ear. Your shoulder has begun to warm where it rests against the mattress, and already you know you'll miss that warmth the moment you sit back up. Because you will, you have to. No one's supposed to lie flat. Especially not you. You lift your head slowly. It's heavier than you expect, full of soft blood and sleep that hasn't finished blooming. Your spine stiffens as you rise to sit again, trying to rearrange yourself into someone who looks composed. Someone who did not just commit a small sin against etiquette, posture, and legacy. The knock comes again, 2 this time, then a pause, then silence, that silence. The one you know too well, a pause filled not with hesitation, but with judgment. Whoever it is, they're waiting, not because they're uncertain, but because they know. You reach for your slippers, linen, lined, worn smooth at the toes. You keep your footsteps quiet as you cross the floor, not because you're afraid, but because you're used to it. Everything in your life has taught you to move softly, to glide, to vanish when needed. You open the door just enough to peer out. A girl stands there, younger than you, barefoot, shivering in a wool shift, her red hair escaping from a rushed braid. Her name is Tilda, one of the maids from the lower floor, new to the house, soft, spoken, the kind of girl who doesn't speak unless spoken to and bows too deeply even when she thinks no one is watching. She shouldn't be here, not at this hour, not without her head covered, not without a chaperone, but she is, and her face tells you this wasn't a mistake. You open the door a little wider. She slips in. Silent as steam, there is no fire in your room, only candlelight, 3 short stubs on the mantel, dripping wax onto the tray beneath. You motion her toward the bench near the hearth. She hesitates, then curtsies awkwardly and sits. You notice her knees are bruised, from scrubbing, probably, or prayer, or both. She doesn't speak right away. Her fingers worry at the hem of her shift, tugging threads that barely hold. You don't rush her. You've lived too long in noble company to expect words to arrive on time. Finally, she says they said you were the only one who'd know. Her voice is small, cracked at the edges, like a teacup long since chipped but still used daily. You raise an eyebrow, but stay silent. She swallows. It's about the lady downstairs. That doesn't narrow things. This house is full of ladies' cousins, widows, noble guests. So you ask gently, which one? Her mouth presses flat. The one they won't let anyone see. Ah, her, you haven't heard that name spoken aloud in weeks. Not since the whispers stopped. Not since the meals stopped being brought to her room. They said she was ill. They always say that. Ill with what, no one dares ask. But the hall outside her chamber smells wrong. Not of sickness, of stillness. No linens being changed. No floorboards creaking. No sighs, no songs, no nothing. Just that oppressive wool. thick hush that wraps around secrets when they're too old to disguise. And now this girl, this shivering wisp of a maid, has brought the story back. You sit across from her, back straight as always, fingers laced in your lap. What did you see? You ask. She doesn't meet your eyes. I was only bringing water. I didn't mean to. I didn't even knock. I thought she wasn't there. Her shoulders curl inward. The door was cracked open, just enough. I peeked. You wait, because you know you've peeked through doors before, too. She was sleeping. The girl whispers, but not like us, not sitting. She was lying down on her back. You feel your breath change. Slightly, but enough to notice. Go on. You say. Tilda's eyes glisten in the candlelight. She looked not peaceful, but stiff, like she'd been that way for too long. Her mouth was open. Her hands crossed over her chest. Your stomach tightens. Because that's how the dead are arranged, not the living. And her skin, Tilda adds, it looked wrong. Yellow, maybe, or blue. I can't tell. I only saw for a moment. You close your eyes. It's not the first time. This house has a history, and sleeping flat for noblewomen was always the first warning. In the old days they called it the noblewoman's fade. Not a disease, not exactly, but a pattern, a quiet vanishing. It began with exhaustion, with small rebellions, a desire to rest just for one night as peasants do. Then came the stillness, the withdrawal, the way color drained from their faces in unnatural ways. They always looked too calm, and then they simply stopped waking. No fever, no wounds, just still. You used to think it was superstition, until it happened to your aunt. She was young, 30 maybe, healthier than most, but she had a soft streak, a refusal to follow certain rules when no one was watching. They found her in the morning, lying flat, pillow soaked with something dark, not blood, not quite, just a slow, black seep that no physician could explain. They burned the mattress, and after that, the family rule was simple, upright only, even in death, especially in death. You look at Tilda. Her shoulders are tight, her chin trembling. She's waiting to be punished or dismissed, but you do neither. You rise, cross the room, open the wardrobe. Inside is your night robe, thicker than usual, brown velvet, lined with fur. You shrug it over your shoulders and motion for Tilda to follow. She hesitates. We're going to her room. You nod, because once a woman starts lying flat in this house, someone has to see if she's still breathing. The hallway is colder than your room. Stone beneath your feet. Walls hung with faded tapestries, saints mostly. None smiling. Tilda carries the candle. You carry the silence. You don't need to ask which room, you know. Third on the right. You pause before the door. Tilda's hand trembles as she lifts the latch. It opens soundlessly. No creak. No protest. The room is dark. The air smells stale, like beeswax and old breath. The curtains are drawn. The bed is high. And there she is, Lady Annalise flat on her back, blanket to her chin, mouth slightly open, eyes closed still. You step closer. Tilda stays behind at first. You think she's dead. But then a twitch, a small flicker at the corner of her lip, a breath, thin, trembling but real. She's alive, just too still, like something in her has forgotten how to rise. Her hands rest on her stomach, fingers interlaced. You notice a bruise on one wrist, and something beneath the blanket, the faint outline of a corset, tightly laced. Even now, you reach out, touch her wrist, cold, but not gone, and suddenly you understand. She hasn't chosen this. She's stuck, somewhere between obedience and exhaustion, between performance and surrender. She's been asleep so long. She's begun to disappear, not in death, but in dignity. You step back. Tilda is crying now, silent tears, because she knows, too. She saw what happens when a noblewoman stops pretending to be strong. You pull the blanket higher over Annalise's shoulders, then motion for Tilda to follow you out. No words, not yet. The door clicks shut, and in the hallway, you finally ask yourself something you've been avoiding for years. What if sitting upright was never about beauty at all? What if it was just a way to keep you from slipping into your truest, most helpless shape? And if so, what would happen? If you never sat back up again, you are half asleep, though your body never really lies down anymore. Propped up by bolsters and braided rolls of wool stuffed into pillowcases, your neck locked in the angled tyranny of an upright doze, you drift between moments of breathing, of trying not to cough, of ignoring the dull burn beneath your ribs. You are starting to suspect that your body has quietly betrayed you, but you are not allowed to say so. You are a noblewoman, and noblewomen in your house do not break down. They become icons in portraits. They are embalmed in their own fabrics. They are whispered about long after their rooms have been refilled with new daughters, new beds, new perfume. You try to stay quiet so that your pillow servant doesn't know you're awake. He's there in the corner again, the same pale man, the one who rearranges your pillows at midnight as if they were coals in a hearth. No one really trained him, and no one ever speaks of him, but he has learned how to shift your padded ramp by mere centimeters until your spine no longer spasms. He touches fabric like it's a holy object, and he doesn't speak unless spoken to, which is, of course, perfect. Still, you've watched him. In your half-sleep haze, you've studied the edge of his movements, like watching the breeze find a curtain. He's careful, too careful. Tonight, you wake up to find he's humming something, low, faint, not loud enough for anyone else to hear, a lullaby, a prayer, no. It's just a rhythm, a working rhythm, something to time his lifting with. You imagine, perhaps cruelly, that it must be strange to spend your life fluffing up the suffering of noble lungs, and yet to still find music in the pattern of it. You shift, he notices, he stops humming. He bows stiffly. "Apologies, my lady," he whispers, eyes lowered. You say nothing. He brings the rose, watercloth, and dabs your forehead with practiced reverence. Not too wet, not too cold. The room smells like dried lavender and a dying fire. And under all that, linen, you speak before you realize it. "What's your name?" The servant freezes. No noblewoman is supposed to ask that. Your attendants are known by position, not person. You have a combing girl, a tea pourer, a button maid, and, of course, a pillow servant. Names are dangerous. They imply you might care. But tonight you do care. Not because you're kind, you're simply very tired, and tired people want softness. Even the softness of a name. He hesitates. "I am called Ansel, my lady." Ansel. The name folds gently into the air. He waits for some reprimand, but you say nothing. Instead, your voice comes again, slower. "Why do you hum?" It sounds accusatory. "You didn't mean it that way." His eyes flick up, uncertain, then down. Then, for the first time, something honest leaks out from between the tight lips of a servant trained to disappear. "My sister used to hum to me when I was ill, my lady. She said it slowed the pain." You blink. Ansel is already fluffing the shoulder roll again, but you've stopped seeing him as a pair of careful hands. You begin to realize he is, against all tradition, a person. This is dangerous. You close your eyes. You dream of your childhood nursemaid, the one who used to tie a bell to your nightgown so she'd know if you rolled onto your back in your sleep. Backs, leaping in noblewomen, was considered a sign of bad character. Loose morals, weak discipline. Death entered through the mouth, you were told, and a woman who slept with her jaw wide was inviting every spirit of sin. Sitting up was safe. Sitting up was modest. You never questioned it. Even now, with the pain in your joints and the hum of pressure under your ribs, you still believe it might be worse to lie flat and face your own wicked breath. The next day, a new visitor arrives. She's a cousin by marriage from the southern coast, one of those sun, dark wind, scolded ladies with amber rings and heavy ankles. She marches into your chamber like it belongs to her and throws open a curtain. Sunlight stabs your eyes. "Oh, heavens, look at you," she exclaims, grinning as if you're some deliciously withered pear, still sleeping like a chimney pot. "I thought they'd banned that up north." You blink. Banned, sitting up? Lord, yes. Not good for the lungs, or the bowels for that matter. That posture makes you rot from the inside, didn't you know? Whole abbeys have changed their bedding customs. She walks over and pokes your pillow tower with a mocking fingertip. You know we've taken to sleeping propped just a little, not like saints in a reliquary, more of a gentle incline, like dying but slowly. You try to laugh, but something twists in your ribs and becomes a cough instead. She smiles like a woman who's won something. That night, Ansel finds you weeping soundlessly. He doesn't ask why. Instead, he does something unthinkable. He removes one pillow, just one. A modest act of rebellion. But in this household, it might as well be arson. You open your mouth to protest, but your breath catches on something softer. It's easier to breathe. Your shoulders sink by a blessed inch. Your chin falls back into the orbit of your spine. You don't thank him, that would make it real. You just close your eyes and pretend you didn't notice. Word spreads, quietly, and then not so quietly. By week's end, 2 other noblewomen in the household have removed their top pillow as well. One of them blames the seamstress for sewing the cover too tight. The other says it slipped in the night. But you can see the change in their posture. They're not saints anymore. They're women trying to breathe. Ansel is reassigned by the mistress of the house. The official reason is imbalance of his bedside manner. You know the truth. He was too kind, too good, too human. Your new pillow servant is a girl with stiff braids and a smell like pickled herbs. She does everything precisely, exactly, without a hum, without a name, without a soul. She replaces the missing pillow. You do not stop her. But that night, you wake in the dark and gently, secretly, slip one of the bolsters to the floor. There are rumors in the corridors now that some noblewomen, French ones especially, have started sleeping on slanted divans padded with horsehair, designed by court physicians. That Queen Catherine once dozed at a 15-degree angle and woke up free of cough for 3 days. It all sounds like blasphemy, but you hold on to it. Your body aches a little less when you imagine French ladies sleeping like half, draped statuary instead of crucified martyrs. One evening, you are summoned to dinner. A rare thing, as you haven't walked properly in weeks. You're braced, dressed, and lifted with quiet ceremony into the great hall, where a fire roars like a bear with its fur on fire. There, among the laughing voices and clinking goblets, you see her, a dowager duchess, draped in pearls, nodding off in her chair, and her head is tilted back, her mouth open, her chin lifted like a child dreaming of clouds. She looks foolish, undignified. She looks free. No one says anything. No one dares. But you stare too long, and something in you opens like a sealed window. That night, you take the boldest risk of your life. You tell your new servant to bring you 2 fewer pillows. She blinks, confused. I don't think the lady mistress. Tell her I command it. You rasp. You don't know if she will. But the pillows are gone by the time the fire dims. You lie back, slowly, cautiously, and the mattress swallows you like warm sand. Your spine stretches. Your ribs expand. The ceiling stares back at you like an old friend. It feels like drowning and flying and praying all at once. You sleep, and this time, when you dream, there are no bells on your gown. You're not allowed to sleep like a normal person anymore. Not with your head flat on a pillow, hair spilled wild across the linen like some tavern wench. Not with your body sprawled sideways, hands tucked beneath your cheek, like those peasant girls who haul milk jugs before dawn. And certainly not with your mouth open. Heaven forbid, no tonight, and every night after. Your posture must resemble piety. You must sleep like a statue, sitting up, back angled against the headboard, wrists delicately crossed like you're halfway through a church hymn. Not to rest but to preserve, not to dream but to defend. And what you are defending is terrifyingly fragile, your face, because in this era your face is your future, and your future is powder. The apothecary's concoction, made of white lead, vinegar, and crushed pearls, has hardened into a delicate mask on your skin. You can feel it tighten like drying clay. If you so much as roll over, the powder will crack. The illusion will shatter. You will wake with blotches, or worse, a patch of true skin, your God, given olive tone, shamefully exposed beneath the flaking white. It has taken years to pale you into submission. Years of bleaching, dabbing, shaving the brow, painting the forehead to look higher, whiter, quieter, and the slightest mistake, a drooping cheek, a smudge in the night, and does it all. So pillows are no longer soft things. They're guardians, and sometimes weapons. Your lady's maid, Jonette, adjusts the bolsters around your spine with the obsessive precision of a siege engineer. 3 feather, stuffed rolls behind your back, 1 silk cylinder behind your neck, a crescent pillow beneath your elbows so your arms don't press against your ribcage and ruin your corset's silhouette. And finally, 2 tiny cushions cupping your jaw, as if your face were a reliquary. "Keep still now, my lady," she whispers, lighting the lavender sachet above the coals. "You've powdered quite heavy tonight. You have. The mirror said you looked perfect, but now, even breathing feels risky." Jonette steps back, examining her work like an artist judging her sculpture. Her mouth twitches. She tucks in the final corner of your night rail and gives a satisfied nod. "There," she says softly. "Try not to smile in your sleep. You want to laugh, but don't. Your skin would crease. It would be easier if you were the only one forced to do this. But every noblewoman you know, every courtly cousin, every rival in lace, sleeps the same way now. Upright, plastered, silent. Even Queen Elizabeth herself reportedly sleeps sitting up, her face perfectly powdered, guarded by 20 ladies and 2 lapdogs. You've heard she wears a mask at night to protect her real mask beneath. The fashion has spread like mold across the kingdom, rooted in vanity, watered by fear, and trimmed into shape by husbands who demand beauty with all the warmth of tax collectors. There are stories of women waking up disfigured, cheeks rotted by white lead, skin peeling off in strips. A duchess in Norfolk who once rolled in her sleep and awoke with the side of her face half pink, half powdered. She didn't leave her estate for 6 months. Her mirror was shattered by mourning. Your cousin Elinor claims she knows a girl who bled from her pores after trying a new Venetian powder. It made her look divine for a fortnight, she whispered. Then her skin slid off like buttered parchment. You believed her, you still do. But what choice do you have? In the dark, your body tries to rebel. Your spine aches from being braced all day in boning and brocade. Your legs itch under the wool blankets. Your neck yearns to tilt, just slightly, to one side, but the jaw. Pillows hold firm. You blink into the flickering shadows and realize you're not even alone. A long oval mirror stands across from your bed, angled just. So, Jonette set it up after your wedding, saying it helped you track your sleep posture. Better to see how you look waking than wonder what's gone wrong. You hadn't minded then. Now you dread it. The mirror watches as you sleep, and in the morning it reports, and God forbid you sweat. It's August, and the room is heavy with trapped air. No breeze, just the scent of drying flowers and faint dampness in the stone. A single bead of sweat could undo the layer of ceruse. One drop, and your beauty will blur. You once tried sleeping with a fan in hand, but woke with a cramp so awful your fingers were locked for a day. Even dreaming feels dangerous now. If you twitch, you risk ruining your mask. So you train your mind to stay still. You recite psalms in Latin. You count stitches in the canopy. You try to imagine blankness, a clean white space like the ideal of your skin. Flawless still, eternal, the opposite of life. In your dream you are unpainted. You walk through a field of wheat without a veil. Your face is tan, sun, bitten, glowing. A boy smiles at you, his teeth crooked but kind. He asks you your name, you don't remember it. When you wake, your back is soaked. Your spine pulses, your lower ribs feel crushed. You blink rapidly, trying not to frown. You haven't moved, but the dampness. No, no, no. You call for Jonette. She appears like a summoned spirit, candle in hand, face tight. Oh, my lady, she breathes, seeing the sweat. I warned you about double, blanketing. She gently lifts your night rail, dabs the dampness with rose water and linen. Then with swift fingers, she reapplies powder to your clavicle. Not the face, not yet. She'll wait for morning light. But she's worried. You can see it. She knows the mask is weakening. Later at breakfast, you sit stiffly with the other women of the household. No one comments on the stiffness, of course. That would be uncivilized. But everyone knows you slept sitting up. Everyone else did too. Lady Albina yawns politely. Her chin is coated in a faint gray film, powder not fully absorbed. Someone stifles a smirk. She flushes and lifts her goblet. Lady Beatrix, meanwhile, has drawn her beauty spots so carefully today you wonder if she used a ruler. 3 tiny black circles, one near the lip, one on her cheek, and, boldly, one on her upper breast. She catches your eye and smiles. I slept without breaking a single line. She says, proud, you nod, polite, distant, dying a little inside. Then someone asks the forbidden question. Did you hear what happened to Lady Maud? A pause. Then whispers, she turned in her sleep. Oh no. They say the pigment leaked into her eye. I heard it burned through the tear duct. She may lose the eye entirely. Silence. Then someone softly murmurs, better to lose the eye than the face. Everyone nods. And breakfast continues. That night, the routine repeats. Starch, powder, align the spine, brace the jaw, breathe shallowly, avoid smiling, pray not to sweat. This time Jeanette brings a new pillow, a crescent, moon-shaped brace made by a French apothecary. She swears it's used at court. It holds the chin firm but gently, she says. The Queen's niece uses one, you test it. It presses slightly on the throat. Your swallowing is restricted, but your face feels safe. Very well. You murmur. Bring it again tomorrow. Jeanette bows. Yes, my lady. She doesn't say what you're both thinking, that eventually this may kill you, but at least you'll die beautiful. Outside your window, the night carries on. The servants sleep on straw pallets. The kitchen boy snores in the cellar. Even the mice are curled into quiet bundles near the larder. But you remain frozen, not just out of vanity, not entirely out of fear, but because this is what it means to survive here, not with strength, not with cunning, but with stillness, with silence, with the discipline of a statue, because beauty in this world is not a gift. It is armor, and each night you sleep sitting up is one more battle won. But tomorrow, the pillow may turn on you. You think you've been given a place to rest, a proper place, a chamber with a door that closes, and a mattress whose linen smells faintly of soap, lavender, and age. There's a stool by the hearth and a jug of boiled water on the table beside the bed, no colder than your skin. You think this is a privilege, but this is not where the real sleeping happens, because there is a rule, and it is stricter than any curfew, more sacred than any confession, and older than the house you're sleeping in. You are not allowed to lie down, not if you are noble, not if you are female, not fully, not yet. It starts with a warning, not spoken, not written. It is the way the other women look at you when you stretch out on your back, arms flopped like a tired child's. It's the way the serving girl gasps and yanks your pillow back upright, shoving it behind your spine. It's the way the older lady, in waiting, lifts a single eyebrow and says nothing. But her silence is a blade. You'll kill your lungs. One of them says, you'll fill your womb with water, says another. You'll bring on death, or sleep too deep to wake from, whispers a third. No one can agree on the exact reason. They never do, but they all agree you must sleep sitting up. At first, you think they're exaggerating. You think it's old superstition, something carried over from peasant medicine or the monasteries, but then you see it, the long wooden board built into the head of the bed, carved with angels but not soft, sloped just enough to keep your back tilted, padded thinly, rigid, fixed. You lean against it. You try to breathe, and you begin your first noblewoman's sleep. You don't sleep so much as hover. Your head tips. Your spine complains. Your feet are numb with cold, but you're not allowed to bring your knees to your chest. That would wrinkle the linen. Your body wants to slide. The maid checks on you every hour, and if you've slipped sideways, she wakes you gently. Not out of kindness, but fear, you are told, softly, apologetically, that death comes faster to women who lie flat. They say it fills the body with stillness, that the blood pools in the wrong places, that lying flat is how corpses rest. And noblewomen, of all people, must never resemble the dead. It is, in a way, a performance. Even in sleep, you must look lovely, delicate, composed. Even in unconsciousness, you must keep up the lie. That your hair is brushed and arranged before bed. That your mouth stays softly closed. That your hands rest over a prayer book, even if you're too tired to read. That your back stays straight and your eyes do not twitch. Because you are noble, and being noble means being watched, even in the dark. By the third night, you begin to dream upright. The dreams are not peaceful. They come in strange fragments, papal hats melting into bed sheets, your mother's ring spinning like a coin across stone, a cradle filled with dirt and feathers. Every time you jerk awake, you are still sitting, still bound in laces, still surrounded by silence. The maid helps you stand, your legs forget how. You've been sleeping like a statue, and statues don't get to lie down. In the early hours, as the fire dies and the coals hum softly, a woman from the older generation sits beside you. Her name is forgotten, or maybe never given. She has a shawl too thin for warmth, and eyes that squint even when there's no light. She tells you the truth, not the official one, but the one that's passed between women. The reason, she says, is grief. You blink. Too many noblewomen died in their beds, she says softly, in their sleep, in childbirth, from fevers, from choking, from ghosts. You think she's joking. Until she lists them: Anne of Bohemia, Jean of Navarre, Queen Margaret, Countess Hedwig. And then she stops and touches your shoulder. It became too much. Too many died lying down, so we started sleeping up. You ask, does it work? She only shrugs, not for the body, but it makes the living feel better. You don't know what to do with that answer. Later that week, you're invited to watch your mistress be dressed. She's a duchess. Widowed twice, one of those women whose voice is a whisper, but who commands everyone's silence with a glance. She sits upright in a bed layered with tassels and oak carvings. She has not slept well, you can tell. Her ladies apply powder beneath her eyes, pat it with cloth, smile without asking questions. She doesn't speak until the veil is pinned. Then she looks up and mutters, half to herself, lying down, makes you vulnerable, a pause. Then, with more clarity, I used to lie flat when I was 16, before the wedding, before the first child died. You look down. That's when she adds, now I sleep like a warrior, against a wall, ready to rise. You don't respond. You're not sure you're allowed to, but something in you shifts, because sleeping upright, you realize, is not just about lungs or blood or ghosts. It is a gesture of control. You begin to notice it everywhere. In portraits, noblewomen are always depicted sitting, hands folded, shoulders high. Even in mourning garb, they are upright. In death masks, their faces are tilted, propped up as if listening. In poems written by young men, the women always sit beside windows, thrones, altars, never curled in bed. And when noblewomen are described lying down, it's always in one of two places, the birthing bed or the coffin. One morning you try to rebel, just a little. You rise early. The fire is out. The bed is cold. No one is watching, yet, so you lie flat, your whole body sighs. The mattress, hard and narrow, feels like a cloud compared to the wooden backboard. For a moment, you think maybe this is what freedom feels like. Quiet, disobedient, entirely horizontal. But then the door opens, a gasp. The maid crosses herself. Her tray clatters, and just like that, the moment is gone. That night, a pillow is brought in. Not for your head. For your knees, it helps circulation. The maid says, but you know it's something else, a compromise, something between full submission and full defiance. You sleep, not fully upright, but not fully free either. A wedge of softness where your joints ache, a small mercy, a very small one. As the days pass, your back stiffens, your chin learns not to fall forward, your dreams grow quieter, less vivid, as if even your unconscious has agreed to the rules. You sleep like this for months, and you wonder, if a woman sleeps sitting up long enough, will her body eventually forget how to lie down? There's a rumor that some queens never lay flat again after their coronations. that their bodies were embalmed upright, that even in their tombs they were entombed in thrones, not coffins. You don't know if it's true, but it sounds believable and terrifying. One evening, you hear whispers through the walls. A young maid has died. She was found in the servants' quarters, curled on her side, mouth open, eyes fluttering in what must have been a painful dream. She was poor. Someone says they always lie down, and no one corrects them. As if lying flat is not just a posture, but a class marker, a sin, a risk only the lower orders are foolish enough to take. Now you understand. Sleeping upright is not just tradition. It's not superstition. It is a signal, a visible, unspoken badge that says, I am noble, I am disciplined, I am not ruled by my body. It is armor, and it is a prison. You wonder which it will become for you. You do not sleep deeply anymore, not since the tapping started. Each night, as soon as the shutters are closed and the fire reduced to a gentle hiss of orange coal, the tapping begins, not from the windows, not from the walls, from within the house, and not a person either, not footsteps, not pacing, just the gentle, deliberate sound of iron tapping porcelain. Tap, tap, tap. It is the sound of a spoon, no doubt, and it echoes somewhere between the hearth and the stairwell, where the old midwife sleeps, the midwife who has not spoken in days. You are not supposed to worry about her. You are a noblewoman, and you have guests, and you have a ceremony to prepare for the laying of the embroidered pillow, the fasting of the fourth night, the ceremonial braiding of the silver thread into your sleeping cap. But the tapping keeps you from resting. They said she had a fever. They said it would pass. But in truth, no one dares enter her chamber now, not even the physician. You overheard the cook whisper to the scullery girl that it is milk lung, a withering sickness, one that settles in the chest of women who have helped too many babies into the world. As if in some cruel twist of irony, the act of helping birth after birth draws the final breath from the midwife herself. No one says this aloud. Instead, they light lavender beside her door. They pour a little milk onto the stone. And every night you hear the spoon tap, tap, tap. You are beginning to understand that sleep is dangerous. Not in the way they told you, oh no. They said sleeping upright was for your virtue, your complexion, your womb. They told you sleeping on your back would cause your blood to rush the wrong way, that your stomach might flip in the night, that nightmares might draw out the breath. But what they didn't say is that lying down opens the mouth, and open mouths invite spirits. That is what the oldest maid whispered when she adjusted your shawl last night. That's what she dared to say when no one else would. They come when the mouth is slack. Now you understand the true role of the midwife's spoon. It wasn't always used for feeding. That's just what they tell the younger girls. She stirs the broth. She feeds the invalid. But the old women remember what it was really for, the silver birthing spoon. Smooth, long, flat, and blessed in secret before each new moon. They say it was the first thing placed in a mother's mouth after her labor ended, not to nourish her, but to wake her, to keep her from slipping too far into the sleep of death. The sleep of silence, the sleep from which women rarely returned. She was never meant to swallow, only to feel it. Cold silver bitter tincture, astringent, earthy, sometimes tasting of wormwood, sometimes of nothing at all. The point was not to nourish, but to summon. It was how the midwife reminded her, you are still here, you are still breathing, you are not allowed to leave yet. And now that same midwife is tapping her spoon in the dark. Tap, tap, not stirring anything, not feeding anyone, just calling someone back. You sleep sitting up tonight, not out of etiquette, but out of dread. Your spine aches against the carved oak headboard. Your veil falls sideways. You've tied your wrists loosely to the arms of the chair, not tight, but just enough that your arms won't slump into dreamless sleep. The room smells like vinegar and dried lavender, and all night the spoon echoes from the lower chamber. In the morning the cook swears the midwife never moved. Her spoon was beside her, yes, but placed neatly on a folded rag. There was no tapping, she says. But you are certain you felt it vibrate in your ribs, the soft, rhythmic percussion of a dying woman keeping time. And now you wonder if she was keeping time. For you ask nothing, say nothing, when the linen girl brings the new pillow. It is thinner than the last one, almost flat, barely more than a square of stiff lace and goose. Down, this will help your posture. She chirps. You nod. You do not tell her you heard something last night. Something softer, stranger than before. That after the tapping came the whispering, not in Latin, not in French, in something older, a breathless, syllabic chant, like wind dragged through teeth. You think you recognized your name. Today they bring you to the chapel. You are not ill, but they insist. It is the proper place for a lady of your station to reflect before the seventh night. You kneel, back straight. The bench is worn down to the bone. A nun reads aloud from a psalm, something about protection in the hour of darkness. But your eyes are fixed on the painting behind the altar. It is not like the others, not Christ, not Mary, not any martyr you recognize. It shows a sleeping woman upright in a carved chair. Her hands are folded, her hair plaited with thread. And behind her, dozens of tiny white figures climbing over her shoulders. They look like children, but not quite. Their limbs are too long, their eyes hollow, and every one of them has a spoon. No one explains this image to you. When you ask the nun what it is, she smiles politely and tells you to recite the litany of the night womb. You don't know the words, you've never heard of it, but you repeat the sounds as best you can. Mouth open, voice trembling, the woman beside you doesn't speak. Her eyes are fixed on the ceiling. That night, the midwife dies. The tapping stops, and something heavier takes its place. The priest visits before dawn. You hear his shoes, soft, soled, careful. He does not walk like the others. His steps are ritual. He enters the room with salt in his hand, and a little bundle of what looks like dried holly and goose feathers. You expect him to pray. He does not. Instead, he dips his finger into a small pewter cup and places a single wet dot at the center of your forehead. You mustn't wake with your mouth open, he says very quietly. Then he turns and leaves. You are afraid to ask questions now. You simply do what you are told. They bind your hair into 12 knots, one for each day of the moon. They tie your shawl not under your chin, but across your lips. They seat you beside the fire, back perfectly straight, hands folded on your lap. You are now forbidden to sleep lying down. They say the sleeping chair is your protection, but you have seen the image. You know what climbs over women in that posture. On the 8th night, the window fogs, the fire refuses to light. The spoon, which had been silent since the midwife's death, falls to the floor without warning. It rolls and stops at your feet. There is no one in the room. You do not move. You do not scream. You do not call for the maid. You simply sit, still as bone, and wait until morning. When the linen girl enters, she sees the spoon, frowns, and picks it up. Should have locked these away with the others, she mumbles. Then she leaves. She does not explain what she meant. You are beginning to understand. They never will. The midwife is buried without ceremony. Not in the chapel yard, not in the crypt, not even in the woods. They say she was taken to the salt pit. You ask what that means. No one answers, but the cook leaves an extra bowl of broth on the floor that night near the hearth. You don't touch it. Your chair now bears the marks of your spine. The lace of your cap is stretched out from being tied over your mouth too many nights in a row. Your eyes burn from sleeping upright. You've begun to dream without dreaming. Half. Sleep visions that show you things you do not want to know. Last night you dreamed of the painting again, but this time the woman turned and her mouth was gone. Just a silver spoon, where her tongue should be. Tomorrow is the 9th night, and they say after that comes the real ceremony. They say the veil will be lifted, that your pillow will be burned, that your mouth must remain closed until sunrise. No matter what you hear, no matter what climbs, no matter how many spoons fall, you are dreaming of candle wax tonight, not the soft warmth of candlelight, nor the gentle flicker against plastered ceilings, but the thick smell of old wax. It clings to the air like melted skin, sweet and cloying. You see the candles lined up like soldiers on a carved wooden shelf. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe, some bent, others straight, all watching, all burning. The fire hisses at you as you stir, and it takes a long moment before you realize you are not alone in this dream. You are lying in the birthing room again. It's not yours. It never is. But your body knows the weight of it all the same. Your knees are propped high, your breath is shallow, your shift clings to you like damp wool. You are not giving birth, but someone is. Someone close enough to scream your name in the dark, and someone close enough to die beside you. Because tonight, the candlelight sees everything. The birthing room was not what paintings or folktales would have you believe. It was not an open field with warm midwives singing herbal songs and brushing hair from damp foreheads. Nor was it a noblewoman's bed soaked in gauze and lace, with proud fathers pacing outside, hoping for boys. It was a battlefield, a silent one, soaked in blood and salt water, and tonight you're back in it as a ghost. Or maybe a servant, or maybe a memory. The room is small. The shutters are drawn tight, not to keep in the heat, but to block out spirits. Superstition knots the windows shut. Linen rags hang from the beams above, soaked in camphor. A knife is buried under the threshold, edge up, to ward off the devil. The cradle remains empty. The mother is 21. She has been screaming since midnight. You're one of 4 women in the room. Not a doctor. Doctors are men, and men are not allowed here. Not until it's too late to help. You are not a priest. Priests wait outside too, also useless. You are one of the quiet ones, the ones who hold the rags and clean the bowls and whisper prayers in between contractions. The kind of prayer that sounds more like bargaining than hope. The midwife hunches over the mother's thighs, sleeves rolled past her elbows, face glistening with sweat. Her hands are red. Her apron is darker than blood. You have seen her before, old, hunched, her breath foul from clove tea and old teeth. But her hands know things. Her hands move like a butcher's, swift and unhesitating, and in those hands is a spoon. Not for soup, not for porridge. This one is for birth. And that, you think, is the worst part of all. They call it the birthing spoon. But it isn't a spoon. It's shaped like one, yes, but its bowl is narrow and flat, designed not for nourishment, but for retrieval. You know what comes next because you've seen it before, or you've heard about it, late at night in the servants' quarters, when the maids gossip to block out the groaning from upstairs. The spoon is for when the baby won't turn, for when the baby won't come, for when the baby is already gone but the body won't let go. It slips inside like a thief metal scraping bone, curling beneath a neck that will never breathe. The midwife leans in, eyes unblinking. The mother screams without sound now. Her voice is gone. Only her teeth remain, clenched shut, clenched tighter. You wonder if anyone told her this might happen, that noble blood doesn't keep death away. It just makes it quieter. Above you, the candles gutter. One by one, they snuff themselves out, as if in mourning, and the shadows grow longer across the mother's face. In 16th-century Europe, noblewomen were not expected to survive childbirth. Not reliably. Their bodies were expected to deliver heirs. Their duty was to provide sons. Their comfort, that was optional. And their death, that was usually their final contribution to their husband's lineage. Which is why the birthing room had more tools than prayers. Hooks, needles, clamps, linen soaked in wine, ivory crucifixes to bite down on, and yes, the spoon the midwife pulls, you flinch, though the mother does not. She's already left her body. Her eyes are wide but vacant, staring up at the beams where the camphor drips down like sweat. You press the rags against her legs, not to clean, but to absorb. The candle beside you flickers in sympathy. You wonder, briefly, who is being born and who is being buried, and then silence, not peace, not yet, just stillness. The midwife holds something in her arms, something limp and bruised. There is no cry, no gasp, just a sigh from the midwife, a tired, familiar sigh. She wraps the baby in cloth, though it won't need it. She passes it to the maid behind her, the one whose apron is cleanest, and that maid is you. You hold the bundle for a moment longer than you should, and something ancient stirs in your chest, not grief, not anger, but something darker, a question that has no place in a room like this. Why do we keep pretending this is normal? You carry the bundle out, past the threshold, past the men waiting with wine. You do not stop when they ask, boy or girl. You do not answer. You do not cry. You do not sleep. That comes later. The next day the priest arrives. He blesses the room with salt and oil, mutters a prayer about holy suffering, and advises the husband to try again next season. The bed is burned, the linen buried, and the midwife. She returns to her cottage at the edge of town and sharpens her spoon, because someone else will need it soon. And what about you? You sit by the fire that evening, your dress stiff with dried blood, your arms aching from holding death too gently. And when the other girls begin to laugh and talk and pretend again, you do not join in. You stare into the flame and remember the candlelight, the way it saw everything, the way it never blinked, the way it stayed even after the breath was gone. You did not ask for this memory, but now it's yours. It follows you to bed that night, lingers beside your pillow like a midwife's shadow, and when you finally sleep, it is upright, as always, because the noblewomen of your world do not lie flat. Not in life, not in sleep, not even in death. You don't hear the knock on the door. Only the smell tells you he has arrived. The wind has quieted. The rats have returned to their scratching. Somewhere, a tapestry shifts like breath behind the wall, but you are too drowsy to be startled. Only the bitter note of wormwood, ground fresh, cuts through the candle-lit haze. He never speaks when he enters. The apothecary is neither servant nor guest. He is simply there, an accepted part of the noble home, like smoke in the beams or mildew in the tapestries. A flickering shadow in the lives of women who bleed too much, breathe too little, or cry out for no reason. You sit upright in your narrow chair, bed, lids half, drawn. You are not sure if you're dreaming. He glides across the chamber, trailing a satchel of smells, rosemary for breath, quicksilver for sleep, poppy for the silence of pain. There are rumors that he once worked for a bishop, or a lord, or the king's second wife. But now he is here, just as he was for your mother and your mother's mother. The women of the house always call when the body begins to rot from within, but won't admit it aloud. You are not ill. That's what you tell yourself. Only exhausted, only still bleeding, only a little more pale than usual. And your sleep, you claim, has always been shallow. He doesn't ask permission. He lights a second candle beside yours, one that smells like sulfur and dried goat's blood. It hisses softly in the stale air. His hands never tremble, though they are the hands of a man far older than he appears. His eyes are clouded like old river glass, unreadable. He hums beneath his breath, something older than Latin, older than prayer. He places 3 things on your lap without meeting your gaze: a bundle of white moss, a strip of parchment soaked in vinegar, a tiny glass jar. Sealed with beeswax, you do not ask questions. Noblewomen never ask the apothecary questions. But he speaks anyway. The moss is for tomorrow night. He murmurs, if the bleeding continues. You lower your gaze to the folded bundle. It looks like something scraped from a tomb wall. You don't know where it grows. You don't want to know. The parchment is for the child, he says. You freeze. There is no child. You whisper. His silence folds around you like damp wool. There may be. He finally answers, and parchment remembers things the body tries to forget. The vinegar ink will be dry by morning. If tucked beneath your tongue during sleep, it might trick your womb into silence, or trick God into forgetting. You do not pick it up. He pushes the jar gently toward you. You flinch at the soft thunk against your knee. Inside the glass, a strange oily swirl of black rust and gold. Floating in it, a clump of tangled red threads. What is it? You ask before you can stop yourself. The candle wax from a dozen noblewomen's beds, he replies. Mixed with the blood of a fox and your own hair, you suddenly want to vomit. You hadn't noticed any missing. If you burn it beneath your seat tonight, he says calmly, you might sleep better. You want to laugh or scream, but you do neither. Instead, you nod, because he is already packing up. And women who scream don't get silence. They get sent away. He leaves behind his second candle. It is said the apothecary's candles never go out unless he wills it. that they are made from wax rendered down from the bodies of women who died in childbirth, that their smoke draws away sickness, not into heaven, but into the wall behind the hearth. You stare at it for a long time. Then you light the jar's contents beneath your chair. The room fills with a smell like crushed iron and rotting lilac. A little sweetness, a lot of something else. You remain sitting upright, head bobbing with sleep. You dream that night, not of children or men or your own bones, but of strings, long crimson strings, twining through your belly, your throat, your toes, tugging softly. The morning is not morning. It is simply not night anymore. You wake with your neck stiff and your feet cold. The chair beneath you feels wet, though you don't know if it's sweat or something worse. The apothecary's candle still burns, but the jar beneath the seat is empty, its contents long turned to smoke. You wonder if you are now inside it, half vanished, half memory, like the women whose wax once made the flame. You are not better. But the bleeding has slowed, that is enough. The maid enters without knocking. She does not notice the smell. Instead, she sets a tray of boiled bread and chicory water at your side, then mutters, "You're to wear green today." His Grace prefers it when ladies wear green. You do not ask which His Grace she means, you only nod. You are silent during the fitting. The green gown is heavy, brocaded with gold thread and tiny glass beads shaped like leaves. You try not to think of the candle wax, of the thread in the jar, of the strings in your dream. The maid speaks idly as she pins your sleeves. They say the new Duchess of Sainted, Yen wears her hair down all night, even while she sleeps sitting up. You do not respond, even brushes it at midnight. She continues, as though sharing something delicious, like it wards off dreams. You stare into the mirror as she tightens your bodice. A line of bruises has bloomed along your ribs, where the corset presses hardest. You know what she wants, a reaction, something to tell the other maids. You give her none, because you know what they say about your chamber. They say no maid stays more than 3 nights in it, that the wallpaper peels in patterns, that the curtains breathe. They say you never truly sleep, and that your candle never, ever goes out. That night, you sit by the window, staring at the stars through lace. You are not praying. You are not thinking of the apothecary. You are trying not to remember the baby you nearly had last spring, the one that arrived too early and too quiet and too covered in blue. You did not scream then, either. You only sat upright for 7 nights straight, waiting for the blood to stop. It didn't, not for 3 weeks. The chair you slept in had to be burned. The midwife still won't look you in the eye. You light the apothecary's candle again. Then, without fully knowing why, you do what the Duchess supposedly does. You brush your hair. Once, twice, 3 times. You are not sure if it helps, but as the strands fall around your shoulders, you feel less like a corpse and more like a woman. You place 1 hair in a fresh jar. You tuck the vinegar, parchment under your tongue. And then you sit, spine stiff, eyes half shut, waiting. You do not sleep, but you also do not bleed, and in this house, that counts as a kind of miracle. The flame burns low, the wax crackles, then settles. You dream not of strings this time, but of a green dress floating in an empty cradle. And somewhere in the corner behind the hearth, the apothecary watches with his river-glass eyes, nodding. You are not awake, but you are not quite asleep either. Somewhere in the dim hour between midnight and the next bell, the nursemaid brushes past your chamber door. Her slippers make no sound. Her breath is shallow. Even the wooden floorboards, famously grown, offer her no resistance. This is no ordinary walk. This is a practiced, careful lie carried on soft feet and kept alive by omission. She is not coming to check on you. You've grown enough to know the rhythm of a lie long before words are ever spoken. You can sense it in the way she flinches when the wind knocks against the shutters. You can see it in her eyes when she makes the sign of the cross 4 times instead of 3. You can feel it in your back, the stiffness, the strain from sleeping upright for weeks now. What they say is this: if you lie too flat, the devil will press upon your chest. What they mean is something else entirely, and the nursemaid is in on it. You shift under your covers, the feather mattress stacked behind you like a throne, propping your spine into a false posture of health. Your breathing is shallow because that is what is expected of someone weak. But you're listening now, really listening. Down the hall, a second pair of footsteps joins hers. This set is heavier, confident, full of clipped efficiency. Probably Mistress Alder, the old governess with the hands that never tremble. She carries with her a pouch of dried rosemary and a jar of vinegar, soaked rags. She has never explained what these are for, but you've watched her drag them under doorframes, muttering in Latin as if the floorboards themselves can absorb fear. Tonight, you will follow, because your bones ache from ignorance more than illness. You rise with the slow caution of a girl taught to behave like a relic, valuable, breakable, and not quite human. Your chemise whispers against your legs. Your knees crackle softly as you lower them to the cold floor, one after the other. Then, you wait the candle in your heart burning low but steady. Once the hallway hushes, you begin your slow descent, padding barefoot behind the trail of vinegar and rosemary, down the back servants' stair. The manor has bones, and they creak louder in the dark. You count every step like prayer beads, 1, 2, 3. By the 8th, you realize something you have never realized before. The nursemaid's quietness is not gifted by training. It is demanded by necessity. The two women reach a narrow door you didn't even know existed tucked behind the tapestries, just before the buttery. It opens not with a key, but with a pressure touch, a hidden panel on the frame that clicks like the lid of a coffin. They slip inside, you wait, 10 slow heartbeats, then you follow. The corridor is warm, warmer than the rest of the house, and damp in a way that curls your hair against your temples. Stone floor is darker here, not dusty gray like the upstairs, but stained with something deeper, old and veined like dried blood. You don't recognize the space. You suspect you were never meant to. The chamber it opens into is low-ceilinged and smells of burning lavender and sheep's tallow. There are copper pans hanging on the walls, but they shine too bright for kitchen, where, on one side is a large stone chair, the kind you've only ever seen in woodcuts of infirmaries. Its arms are too wide, its seat is too narrow, its straps are leather, and beneath it, a bucket. You do not know what this room is for, but something in your marrow does. The nursemaid stands at the far side of the room, holding a length of cloth that gleams slick in the firelight. Mistress Alder removes something from her pouch, a small metal spoon wide, bold with a sharp notch on the edge. She dips it in oil and lets it drip. The nursemaid catches your eye. You are not meant to be here. But it is too late now. They let you stay, or perhaps they no longer care to send you back. Either way, you sit on a low stool, hands folded tightly in your lap, as Mistress Alder begins to speak. Her voice is flat, clear, clean like a scalpel. The noblewoman's body is not her own, she says. It is her husband's legacy, the church's vessel, and the state's future. That is why she must be kept upright. You blink. She continues. If a woman lies flat, the fluids settle, the humors misalign, the womb sinks and cannot rise again. She gestures to the stone chair. This helps. Gravity knows its duties better than women do. The nursemaid looks down, ashamed, or perhaps exhausted. You feel nauseous, not from sickness, from clarity. The spoon, it turns out, is not for the mouth. It is for delivery, not of food, but of something far heavier. They do not say it outright, but you know now. This is where the weaker births are handled, the difficult ones, the ones that might ruin a family's name or legacy. This is where unwanted children disappear, through the quiet work of nursemaids and the silent agreement of stone. And it is also why the noblewoman must always sleep sitting up, because the minute she lies down, so does her power, so does her protection, so does the illusion that she has any say in what leaves her body and when. Mistress Alder speaks again, this time directly to you. You will come to this chair someday, she says, without cruelty or warmth. Your mother did, so that is why your mother always looked away when you asked why she never lay flat, why she bristled at softness, why she always winced when laughing, because she never healed, because healing was not the point. You leave the hidden chamber before dawn. When you crawl back into your upright nest of pillows, you realize you have not spoken a word in hours. Your tongue feels dry. Your mind aches with knowledge it did not ask for. The sun rises without fanfare. The house awakens. The lie resumes. And once again, you sit through breakfast propped on 3 cushions, nodding politely, swallowing food you do not taste, listening to the physician prattle on about vapors and milk spots and God's plan for strong wombs. You no longer hear him. You are listening for the nursemaid's footsteps. You are counting each time she crosses the floor. You are calculating how many chairs like that exist in the houses of your cousins, your aunts, your friends. How many spoons, how many nursemaids who knew and never said, and how many girls were told gently and without malice, "Sit upright, my dear, it's better for your beauty." Even when you see what lies on the silver tray, you want to. Something inside your chest coils and shrivels, the way linen tightens in boiling water, but your mouth does not open. You are not permitted that sound. The room is still, too still, except for the tick of the fire spitting in the brazier, and the low, sweet voice of the surgeon reciting from memory the names of saints. His fingers are already wet. A flick of rosewater across the knuckles, then vinegar. He dabs both behind his ears. One of the maids begins to hum softly. There is a basin on the floor. It is shallow brass, rimmed wide enough to catch anything that might fall. You are sitting up, propped with 3 goose feather pillows. You feel neither goose nor feather. You feel the sweat climbing your spine in small, desperate feet, because now you know the child will not come on its own. It was the 3rd hour of labor when the midwife grew pale, the 4th when the linen under you began to turn a worrying shade of rust, and the 5th when a page was sent to summon the roll. They didn't say the surgeon's name, just bring the roll, as if the linen itself would walk in, stiff with starch and blood and folded steel. You know what that means. Every noblewoman does. From Aragon to Augsburg, from your mother's caution. Whispers to the hand, stitched borders of medical almanacs. The meaning of the surgeon's linen roll is universal. It is the roll that ends women, or saves them, if they are lucky or royal or strong enough not to flinch. It holds all the tools of intervention, curved shears, long, handled spoons, hooks with velvet-wrapped handles, clamps, wire, threaded needles. An iron scalpel that never quite gleams, and worst of all, the crushing tong, shaped like a half-finished lantern, designed for when the child does not want to leave, but must. You do not ask what he will use. He is already unrolling the linen. The surgeon's apprentice holds the spoon like it is sacred. It is large, too large, flattened like a warped ladle, with holes in the bowl, and a handle shaped like a fleur-de-lis. It has a name, though no one speaks it aloud in your presence. The deliverer, it will be inserted, twisted, leveraged. You are meant to survive this. You lie there and think about the chairs your ancestors sat in, upright through pain. You remember the iron cross, bar they used to bite, and the warm broth they never finished. You lie there and try not to imagine the shape of your own insides. The air smells like rosemary and burned thread. Your husband is not here. He has gone to chapel as instructed. The priest refused to give confession in the birthing room. You do not weep. Instead, your breath begins to move like a mill wheel, slow. Deep mechanical, this is not your first birth, but it may be your first. Ending, the spoon enters, no one speaks. The surgeon's lips are moving, but he is speaking to the child. A whisper just under your range of hearing. A promise maybe, or a bargain. You feel pressure, then searing, then pressure again. You cannot tell where the pain begins. Only that it is shaped like your whole body, the walls dim. Your ears fill with wool. Your spine becomes liquid. A distant voice says, yes, she's still here. And then, impossibly, something gives, a rush of movement. Linen is grabbed, metal clinks. There is a cry not yours. A sound like wet parchment being torn. Then silence again, followed by a watery gasp. The child is here, alive. You do not feel relief. Not yet. Your breath is too far away. They do not hand you the child. Not immediately. First, they clean. Then wrap, then pray. The child has a splotch on its cheek. The surgeon murmurs something about marks of pressure. And the apprentice nods too quickly. You, meanwhile, are barely aware of the stitching that begins. The basin has been emptied. Twice. You are told not to look. There are rules about what you can see after birth. In some courts, mirrors are draped with black for 9 days. In others, a woman may not wash her face with cold water until the bleeding stops. You are forbidden salt for a fortnight. The logic, you are told, is humoral. Salt dries, salt preserves, salt hardens the grief in a woman's womb, but you know better. Salt is for the living. The surgeon finishes and nods. You are still here, which is more than they expected. The child, your daughter, is handed to you at last. You are too weak to hold her, so she is laid on your chest, tiny hands balled into fists. She smells like chalk and crushed grapes. Her eyes barely open. You wonder if she will ever be told what was used to bring her into the world. You wonder if she will sleep sitting up like you. You wonder if she will live past 20, or die in a bed like this, head bound in sweat, ribbons. But that is a thought for another hour. For now, your attendants pull the curtains. They place poppy extract on your tongue. They remove the basin without a word, and you sleep, sitting up still, because lying down is for women who have no more blood left. And you have just enough left for dreaming. It happens in the quiet hour when the wind flattens against the shutters like a silk fan, and all the oil lamps have burned down into bowls of flickering memory. Your limbs are folded into your sheets like origami, an uncomfortable kind, sharp at the elbows and tight at the knees. The air is sweet with rosewater and something else, something like rust. You're not sure what wakes you. A breath maybe, but not yours. The pillow beneath your head is as hard as ever. Your hair, lacquered and pinned, has not moved in the night. You're lying on your side, just as the physician instructed, so that your internal vapors would not flood the brain and cause hallucinations. But the hallucinations come anyway, don't they? You open your eyes. At the far end of the chamber stands the mirror. It is not yours. It arrived yesterday, just after sundown, wrapped in old priest robes and carried by 2 sweating men who would not speak your name. The chambermaids had not wanted to touch it. It reflects things too clearly. One whispered. The steward simply bowed and left the room. The mirror stayed. It leans now against the wall, large as a doorway, framed in black lacquer carved with clouds, bats, and open mouths. You lie there and watch it. The moonlight slides across the mirror's surface like the soft part of a blade. But no reflection comes, not of the wall or the curtains or the bed, especially not of you. You rise, bare feet silent on the creaking floor. You keep your breath shallow, because this is a house where heavy breathing is seen as impolite. You clutch the robe from the foot of the bed and wrap it around your shoulders like guilt. You stand before the mirror. There is only moonlight, no face, no draped silhouette, just glass as still as a frozen pond. Your hand rises. It does not rise in the mirror, and yet it feels as though someone else's hand is already touching the glass. Waiting, you want to step back, but your feet do not move. They have taught you many things in this noble household. How to speak in syllables that float like plum petals. How to walk so softly that not even a rat will wake. How to sleep without wrinkling the embroidered sheets. But they never taught you how to look into something that does not see you. You lean in. The surface of the mirror smells faintly of pine smoke. And iron? Then, just before your nose touches the glass, you see something. Not yourself, no, but a face, a girl. She is sitting on your bed, right behind you. She is younger than you, maybe 15, wearing a sleeping robe too formal for dreams. Her hair is pinned like yours, but too tightly, so tightly that tiny red lines trail down her neck. She is weeping, silently, with a sort of practiced grace that suggests this is not the first night she's done so. You spin around. The bed is empty, but the sheets. Your sheets are wrinkled in the shape of someone else's body. You return to the mirror. The girl is gone. In her place is another vision. A noblewoman, older this time. Maybe 40, thick, lashed eyes, cheeks powdered too pale, lips stained black, red like rotten cherries. She is brushing her hair, but the brush snags again and again on something beneath the surface of the scalp. She does not wince. Her eyes are hollow. You know that expression. You've seen it on your own face before certain dinners. It is the look of someone who has learned the art of being present, but not there. You step closer to the mirror, as if the surface might soften or explain itself, but the woman disappears before you can blink. In her place is nothing, just a wall of shadows, but now your own reflection begins to show. Only, it is not quite right. Your face is pale, yes. Your robe is the same, but your hands are folded in a strange gesture you do not recognize. The fingers touch at odd angles, like the ancient priestly signs used to ward off nighttime spirits. You are not making that sign, and yet, in the mirror, you are. The reflection's mouth opens, yours does not. You are certain now. The mirror is not broken. It is remembering, not what stands before it, but what has stood before it before. You sit back on your bed, pulse fluttering like a ribbon caught in wind. You do not call the maid. You do not knock for the steward. These are the kinds of fears you keep to yourself, like blood on a handkerchief. You try to sleep. You fail. In the days that follow, you ask questions, quiet ones, clever ones. You discover that the mirror once belonged to a lady of the inner court, long dead now, though no one quite remembers how. You are told, very softly and only once, that she had no children, no visitors, no name left on the household scroll. Just this mirror. They say she stared into it for hours, refused to sleep unless it was in sight, refused to marry unless her suitor's reflection pleased her. She died without ever liking what she saw. You try to have it moved. The steward refuses. It was a gift, he says, from someone important. He does not name names. The servants begin leaving your chamber earlier and earlier. No one will light the lamps anymore. You must do it yourself. By the fourth night, you cover the mirror in a thick blanket, the kind used in winter funerals. Still it hums, not with sound but presence. That night you dream of drowning, not in water, in faces, dozens of them, pale, powdered, 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 all with mouths that do not move, all with hands that clutch their sleeping robes like they were burial shrouds. They stare into you, not at you, and you understand. The mirror is not for reflection. It is a graveyard, a place where the faces of those who weren't allowed to scream go to exist forever. You wake with your hair unpinned, though you remember fastening it carefully before sleep. Your face is smeared with rouge you didn't apply, and your hands are still making that strange sign, thumb folded, middle fingers crossed. The maid gasps when she enters. You say nothing. She does not ask. That morning you speak to no one. You eat in silence, even as the steward drones on about ceremony and lineage. He mentions that tomorrow you must receive a guest, a high official. He has heard of your beauty. Your grace, your family's position. You nod, but your thoughts are with the mirror. That night, you wait until all has gone quiet. You rise. You go to the mirror, and this time you do not flinch. You pull the funeral blanket off like peeling skin from a wound. You stare. Your reflection appears, whole, still, then shifts, not into someone else, but into you, only older, sadder, alone, your future, your fear. You do not know, but the reflection raises its hand in farewell. And you do too. You cover the mirror again. You lie back in bed. You press your palm to your chest and whisper a single sentence. I will not become what they were. The moon climbs, the wind returns. The shadows sleep more soundly, but the mirror never does. It waits for the next girl. There is no candlelight in your room tonight, not because of any grand decision, but because the wax has melted down to nothing. The flame sputtered as you sat still in your wooden chair, arms folded, chin trembling with drowsiness. The final hiss sounded like a whisper in your ear. Gone. The darkness that replaces it is absolute, and for the first time in weeks, you are truly alone with it. No nursemaid, no sisters, no footfalls outside. Just the soft ticking of a silver clock and the weight of a silken headpiece tugging at your temples. Your posture wavers, one shoulder droops, then the other. You nearly slide off the cushioned seat, but the sound of something creaking inside the walls startles you upright. You don't know what it is, a pipe, a mouse, a ghost, or the Lady Marguerite, your aunt, who once died in this very bedchamber sitting upright in her chair. They found her cold and stiff as an altar statue. They say her eyes never closed, your vision blurs, sleep wants you, craves you, but the old rules still bind your neck like velvet rope. Do not lie flat, do not shift too much, and no matter what, keep the ointment on your cheeks. The ointment smells like vinegar and wormwood tonight. They added something new to it, you're sure, something sharper. You dare not move your hands to scratch. Your sleeves have been sewn over your palms. Just then, a knock, not at the door, but at the window. You freeze. A pale light flickers against the glass. You hear the crunch of gravel below. Your room is on the second floor. No one should be there. No one should reach that height. Your body remains still as your mind screams. Another knock. Then a voice. It is barely a whisper, as if spoken through wool. You're one of them now, aren't you? You don't answer. The voice belongs to someone old, or perhaps someone who was once young, but had their youth stretched too thin by grief. There is a slow lilt in her vowels, like someone who used to sing, but has forgotten the notes. She says again, one of them, the still ones, the painted ones, you manage a breath, who are you? Oh, child, I used to sit as you sit now, 100 nights, 200, until the lamps ran dry, until the servants stopped knocking, until they thought I was dead. You crawl toward the window. Each movement is a betrayal to the pain in your knees. When you reach it, you squint into the night. There is a lantern below, held by a woman whose hair is white as candle ash. She smiles at you, not sweetly, not cruelly, but with recognition. They made you one of them. You whisper back, who? She lifts her lantern higher. The order of the still-faced brides, the ones who sleep sitting up, the ones who are never allowed to bend, the ones whose blood stays frozen in their thighs. You shake your head, but you know she's right. She points to your chest. Lift the gown just an inch. See what's beneath. You hesitate, then you obey. You pull back the lace hem of your nightgown. Your skin is pale beneath, yes, but not merely pale. It has yellowed, spoiled. There are bruises like pressed violets blooming up your ribs. You stifle a sob. Why? You ask her. Why do they make us sleep like this? The old woman lowers her lantern. Her eyes flash with an anger so sudden it feels holy. Because beauty must never look alive. You do not understand. She explains, they want your cheeks pale, but not flushed, your lips soft, but not open, your chest still, but not sunken. They want you like a wax statue, a promise of perfection with no heat behind it. They fear what is alive. Alive things bleed. Alive things change. You shake your head. But I am still alive. She looks at you for a long, sad moment, are you? The wind howls. In the hallway behind you, a latch creaks open. You turn from the window. The old woman is gone, but the scent of wormwood has thickened. And the next knock is not at the window. It is at your door. You know who it is. The nursemaid with a bowl of fresh ointment. The one who used to call you little mouse when you scraped your knee. The one who now holds your wrists too tightly when she buttons your sleeves shut. You return to the chair. You let her in. You sit tall. You do not speak. You are, as always, perfect. The light never reaches the corner of the room where the shadows gather. Not in the mornings when sun slants through the casement windows, nor at night when candlelight flickers like frightened breath. That corner remains still, untouched, as if the air itself dares not disturb what lingers there. You've begun to notice it more often now. It is midnight again. You are upright again. The strange chair you sleep in high, backed, stiff, barely padded, is no longer strange. Your bones mold to it. Your breathing adjusts to its unnatural demand. You have not lain fully flat in weeks, not since the whispers began. Whispers that do not come from outside your chamber. No, they rise from beneath. You first heard it on the third night of your confinement. A scrape, like the claw of a rat, across wood. Then silence, then another, and then something softer, breathing. You told yourself it was a servant, a floorboard sighing, the ache of a house too old to sleep, but the noises continued, always when the candles were snuffed, always when you sat upright, half, dreaming, heart fluttering like a startled bird in a wire cage. Last night you pressed your feet to the cold stone floor. The hem of your nightgown whispered across your ankles as you crept forward, one cautious step at a time. You leaned down, pressing your ear to the floorboards, and you heard it again, not breathing, weeping. There are rumors, of course. There always are. This estate has had many noblewomen, many dowries, many first nights, but not all the wives remained. Some left, others vanished, and one, Lady Elsbetta, was last seen at the eastern window, white nightdress fluttering like a ghost as she stared down at the courtyard. You've asked about her carefully. The servants pretend not to know her name, but the older ones, the ones with tired hands and quiet eyes, they glance at the locked panel near your bed and tighten their mouths. The panel blends with the carved wooden wall. You never noticed it before. It is waist, height, narrow. A servant's door, you assume, but the key is gone, and no one will say where it is. Tonight, you dream sitting up, chin slumped forward onto your chest. The dream is not soft. You are walking down a narrow stair. Cold air coils up from below. The torch in your hand flickers. The walls are close, the steps steep. You reach a door, carved, locked, but in the dream, your fingers already have the key. You do not question how. You do not hesitate. You turn it. The metal screams softly, and then the door swings open. You wake gasping. The candle beside your bed has gone out. The room smells of melted wax, faint rosewater, and something else earth. Meld, you sit for a long time in the dark. Then you light the candle again. Your fingers shake. You stare at the wall, at the panel, at the place where the whispers gather, and you decide to ask the stable boy. He is barely 15, freckled, nervous, the kind of boy who bows too deeply and apologizes for nothing. He tells you he's seen it, the room beneath, only once. He says, eyes wide. I followed the dowager's maid down there when I was younger, got caught and beaten, but not before I saw what was inside. You wait. He swallows. A bed, but not a real one. A narrow, upright box with velvet ropes, like a coffin. Your hands go cold. And a gown laid out, white, still clean. He hesitates. There was hair on the pillow, still braided. You return to your chamber that evening with silence knotted around your ribs. The whispers come again that night. But this time you are not afraid. You rise, you go to the wall. You press your hands against the panel. It does not budge, so you kneel and you listen. This time the voice is not weeping. It is singing. A lullaby in a language you do not know, but somehow you understand it. Morning comes. Your husband is away again. Something about treaties or horses or distant blood feuds. It does not matter. You know now what you must do. You find the old maid with the scar on her hand. You do not beg. You ask. She studies you for a long time. Then she reaches into her apron and removes a key. It is thin, ancient, cold to the touch. Do not go at night. She whispers. Do not go alone. But when she turns away, you know you will ignore both of those warnings. Tonight will be the night. You are already dressed, not in your nightgown, but in your wedding gown, the one you wore the night you first slept upright, the one that still smells faintly of lilac and ash. You light a single candle. The flame trembles. Then, with the key in your hand, you kneel before the panel. It opens. The air that rushes out is damp, old, and filled with the faint scent of rose oil and rust. You descend into darkness. You wake in the middle of the night with the weight of your own skin pressing down on you. Not literally, of course, but the varnish on your cheeks, the thick paint on your lips, and the velvet collar choking your throat remind you. You are not sleeping, not really. You are performing still. You always are. The chamber is lit only by the glow of a half-burnt candle. The wax puddles like melted snow. Outside, owls murmur in Latin, or perhaps just in owl. You've not yet decided. Your maid dozes upright in the corner, chin resting on the ironing board. She's dreamt of her own future so many times, sewing for someone else's daughter, dyeing another lady's slippers. She'll inherit nothing, but she will keep everything moving. Including you. You shift, careful not to let your elaborate coif collapse. It's held together with more starch than sense, and more fish glue than hair. You were warned earlier that day not to sweat through your powdered veil again. The last time it happened, the artist who had painted your likeness a week prior demanded payment for damages to his canvas. He said the oil on your skin had warped the paint. He had a point. You breathe shallowly. Deep breaths would disturb the crushed herbs sown into your bodies. Rosemary, sage, myrrh, meant to keep your blood in harmony and your lungs from rebellion. They do neither. Somewhere below the palace, a lute string snaps. Someone curses. You don't flinch. You've learned not to. One mustn't react too vividly when your entire face is held in place with egg whites and beeswax. You think of your sister, the one who died, the one with the too vivid smile and the too warm eyes. They said she laughed too much, that her humors were imbalanced, that she sweated through her bodice and corrupted the lace. They said it as if it were her fault. You sit up straighter, adjusting the folds of your nightgown. Not that it's a nightgown. It's an embroidered, boned, buttoned, and pleated affair that weighs more than some poultry. But one must maintain appearances, even unconscious ones. The mirror across from you shows a ghost. Pale, rigid, eyelids painted, lips red as crushed cherries. Your sleeping self is more composed than your waking one. That's by design. You were told beauty must never collapse, not even in slumber, especially not in slumber. There are rumors among the maids that noblewomen like you were once allowed to sleep freely years ago, that ladies once lay down in soft shifts, hair braided loose, skin bare to the night air. But that was before the physician. Priests began recording every blemish as a sign of sin. You reach behind your ear and feel a soft patch of peeling skin. Varnish is cruel to softness, but you cannot remove it. Not yet. The apothecary said 7 coats were needed to maintain public perfection. You're only on day 5. You sip water from a cup shaped like a swan. It's lukewarm and slightly metallic, but it keeps your tongue from cracking. The cup is porcelain, imported, absurdly valuable. You're not supposed to touch it yourself. But tonight, everything aches too much to care. The tapestry beside your bed shifts slightly. A draft or a mouse. The palace is always teeming with both. You consider lying down. You don't. Instead, you look out the small stained glass window above your chamber. The moon glows like a salted pearl. You wonder if she ever rests, or if she, too, must always shine for others. Your feet begin to cramp. Your corset creaks. You close your eyes again and let your body sway forward, then back. You're nearly asleep when the floorboards creak. Someone's coming. You don't want to sit in it. You never have. And tonight, as the fire burns low and the castle sighs into sleep, you find yourself staring at that old, spindly, backed chair tucked into the attic alcove, the one the maids avoid dusting, the one nobody quite admits exists. Your body is heavy from the weight of the gown, the weight of expectation, the weight of being a woman in a world where sleep is earned, not granted. Your mother told you long ago, in the hush between prayers and brushing hair, that noblewomen must never lie flat unless watched. Something about the blood, something about dreams, but you're older now, and you see what they meant. Dreams are dangerous, especially when they're yours. The chair waits. It was once part of a set, one for each daughter of the house, but now only one remains. Made of ash wood that gleams like bone, the legs curve like a spider's, and the back twists in a pattern that no joiner would admit to carving. Its shadow never quite falls right. At midday it vanishes. At midnight it doubles. You sit because you have to. Sleep doesn't come so much as circle, like a hawk, like a ghost pacing just out of view. You balance upright in the chair, chin drooping toward chest, neck bound by a soft lace collar to keep you from slumping too far. The old nursemaid insisted. If your head tilts more than 5 degrees, the nightmares slip through. You don't remember who taught her that. She doesn't either. In the dark, the chair creaks beneath you, not like furniture, but like lungs. The tapestries stir in the attic's breeze. You imagine the stories they hold. A maiden in blue walking through fog, her hair streaming upward instead of down, a stag with too many eyes. Were these meant to comfort the girls who sat here before you? Your older sister had the chair before you. She always claimed to dream while sitting upright, not dreams of flowers or betrothals, but of staircases that ended in sand, and halls filled with weeping mirrors. She whispered things, too, when she slept, strange words, older than Latin. The priest was summoned once. He left quickly. After her wedding, she refused to take the chair with her, but she left you a note, folded and tucked beneath the cushion. The ink faded now. If you hear the knock from inside the wall, don't answer, even if it says your name. You never have, but sometimes you hear scratching. Sleep comes in wisps, frayed like ribbon ends. You nod off, wake again. Each time the attic feels different, the air denser, the light wrong. There's a moment when you open your eyes and the beams of the roof don't match the angle you remember. You tell yourself it's nothing. You say it gently, like to a child. Somewhere below, the servants are rising. You hear buckets, the creak of old wood. Footsteps that are too slow to be anyone living. You don't look toward the stairwell. The chair shifts. They say noblewomen in the 16th century slept sitting up to preserve their health. That lying flat was a peasant's habit. That blood rushed the wrong way. But that's not it, is it? No, it's because this house remembers the plague, the lost daughters, the fevered raving of girls locked away until they no longer spoke in words. You come from a long line of women who learned to stay vertical, to pretend sleep was safety, to let dreams pass over without invitation. You close your eyes again, a little tighter. The lace collar itches. Your neck is stiff, your mouth dry, but you dare not rise. Not until the sun touches the far wall, not until the shadow under the chair pulls back like a tide. Because the worst thing you could do is fall asleep sideways. The thief beneath the mattress, there is a certain silence that only comes after midnight. A silence shaped not by the absence of noise, but by the presence of breath, your own, steady and shallow, like a ribbon tied around a secret. Your eyes are open, but you do not move. You are seated, propped upright in your narrow bed, the same way you've slept every night since your arrival here, and beneath you the mattress breathes back. It isn't a loud thing, just a settling, a sigh. You tell yourself it's straw shifting, that it is nothing, but it is something. You are the third girl in this chamber to notice it. The first refused to sleep on it again and was sent home. The second disappeared before she could say why she wept during dinner. Now it is your turn. The fire in the hearth is weak, the shadows long. Candlelight would betray you, so you sit still, as you have every night, and wait. The lady who owns this house is not your mother, though she speaks to you like she might be. Her affection is like a brush dipped in vinegar, sharp, thin, always leaving something behind. You've learned to nod. You've learned to smile. You've learned to sit up straight, always straight. But tonight your spine is not still with obedience. It is still with listening. The breath under the bed comes again, a rustle, a softness, and then a sound like thread being pulled through linen. There is something, someone, beneath the mattress. You think of the servant girl who changes your sheets, the way she hurries, the way she never meets your eyes. She did not do that when you first arrived. You think of the lady's hounds, how they whimper when brought near the bedroom. You think of the mattress itself, of how firm it felt on your first night, too firm, of how it seemed to sink just a little more each morning. You do not look down, you do not scream, you simply breathe as your nurse once taught you, quiet in, quiet out. But this time, when the mattress shifts again, when the breath beneath it deepens, you whisper into the dark, I know you're there, and the sound stops. It does not flee, it does not panic, it simply pauses. Then a voice, hoarse, hoarier than time, whispers back, and I know what you are. You wake up with no memory of falling asleep. The sun is bright, the room is empty, your posture is perfect. When the lady arrives with your breakfast, she sets it down with a smile so sweet it stings. You seem rested. You do not answer. She looks at your eyes and sees something changed. You know because she studies you too long, she says. Some girls struggle with the mattress at first. It takes some getting used to. You nod. You smile. You say what is expected, but you know something else now. You know there is a voice beneath you. You know it sleeps in the day. that it whispers in the dark, and you know it knows you. That night, you tuck a knitting needle under your sleeve. A pitiful weapon, but yours. You sit upright again, the same posture, the same waiting, and as the mattress stirs, as the breath begins again, you speak first. What do you want? The voice doesn't answer immediately. It moves like it's turning, like it's crawling, then to finish. You ask what it means, and the voice speaks slowly, carefully, as if choosing its words from the dust. I was a maid once, in this house, in this very bed. A pause. You hold your breath. I slept like you did, sat like you sit. Each night I sank a little deeper, until the lady said I could go no lower. She buried you in the mattress. You whisper, a soft laugh like moth wings. No, not buried, sewn. The voice continues, unraveling in the dark like old ribbon. She had been punished for theft, a necklace, a comb, a jewel missing from a ring, things she never saw. The lady needed a lesson. A legend, so she made me into one. The mattress was punishment, and proof, and warning. 3 girls have heard me now. 1 vanished, 1 returned. You are the 3rd. What happens to the 3rd? You ask. Silence, then that depends. You do not sleep the next night, nor the next. The lady notices. Sit up straight. She hisses at dinner. You're slumping. You force your spine into obedience, but in the bedroom, with the door shut, you kneel. And you begin to cut. You slide the mattress aside. You slice open its edge. Straw spills like spilled secrets. Thread snaps, and beneath it all, damp linen, rotten velvet, skin, the shape of a girl. You want to be sick, but you are not. You free her arms first, then her face. You do not scream. She is not dead, or rather, not only dead. Her eyes open, and she breathes. She rises with the sound of centuries. She does not thank you. She only points to the jewelry box on the shelf, to the comb on the vanity, to the ring that the lady says was always hers. Take them. You say, they're yours. She smiles. The next morning, the lady is gone. Her room empty, her scent lingering like poison in the hall. You are given her chamber, her ring, her chair at the breakfast table. No one questions it, and when the mattress is replaced, it is burned. You sleep upright still, but not because you must. Because sometimes, when the night is very still, you think you hear her breath again. You wake to the sound of scraping, not loud, but sharp, like a fingernail drawn slowly across glass. Your breath still fogs with sleep, and the air is colder than it should be. Damp too, the fire has gone out. The scent of wax lingers, stale and faint, from candles that burned down to the base. For a moment, you think it might be mice or rats. Then the scraping comes again, deliberate, precise, a sound no rodent would ever make. Your eyes shift slowly toward the far corner, where the mirror leans against the wall. It has been there since you arrived, tucked behind a veiled drape, as though someone had tried to hide it. But no one mentioned it. You only noticed it your second night here. Now it glows, not with candlelight, not with the moon, with something else. You rise without knowing why. The air is thick with memory, the kind that doesn't belong to you. You feel it pressing in your chest, in the sockets of your knees, in the roots of your scalp. You cross the floor barefoot, slowly, as the scraping continues. As though someone inside the mirror is drawing something, carving. With a knife, you do not speak, you do not dare. And when you reach the mirror, you see her, a woman, sitting upright in a velvet chair, pale as candle wax, her neck wrapped in linen, her lips gently parted, not breathing, not alive, but not quite dead. She's looking right at you, and in her lap is a child, sleeping, no dead, wrapped in salt, soaked cloth. Preserved. This is how you learn what the salt was really for. Not for meat, not for preservation of fish or pork or bread. It was for babies, stillborn babes, born to noblewomen in high castles who weren't allowed to grieve in public, who were told to sit upright, to smile, to sip broth and wear rouge and pretend they had birthed joy into the world. You want to look away, but the mirror won't let you, because this is her grief, and now it is yours. She isn't a ghost. She isn't some curse. She is a mother. She is what happened when a noblewoman in the 16th century gave birth in silence and lost what little power she ever held. You step closer. On the mirror's surface, the knife strokes continue. Letters now, a name, no, a date. You know this story. You read it once. In a marginal note beside a noble family's birth registry, there was a quiet little annotation. The third child was preserved in salt, buried in secret. The mother never rose again. You always assumed that meant she died. But what if it meant she simply never stood up? What if she kept sitting, night after night, like so many others? What if the entire generation of noblewomen had been trained to grieve quietly, sitting upright, smiling for guests, with pillows at their backs and salt in their mouths? What if that's why the posture remained, not out of elegance, out of unspoken mourning? The mirror flickers. The child is gone. Now the woman is older, wrinkled, still sitting up, still in the same gown, still wrapped in velvet and lace, the embroidery stiff with time. Her lips twitch, just slightly, and for the first time you hear a voice. Not hers, yours, I see you. And somehow she smiles, her hand rises, not to wave, not to beckon, to bless. Then the mirror goes dark, and when you light the candle again, it is just glass, a little warped, a little cold, but empty. You sit for a long time, cross-legged on the floor, listening, not for scraping, but for breath, for the breath of a world that taught women to mourn in silence, that punished grief, that turned sorrow into etiquette. You touch your own throat, the muscles stiff. You've been sitting too long, just like them, but now you know what salt remembers and what mirrors never forget. You wake to a quiet you don't trust. It's not the hush of dawn or the muffled stillness of winter. It's the silence of a chamber that holds its breath. No rustle of hems, no creak of floorboards, no whisper of wind beneath the wooden shutters. Even the fire in the hearth has burned itself down to a huddle of embers, too tired to crackle. You have slept too long, or too deep. Your back aches from the strange curve your body took during the night, half reclined, half upright, cradled by bolsters, ropes, and padding. The headboard dug into your skull. The ribbons holding your posture were supposed to keep you from slipping too far into dreams, from lying flat as the dead. That was the plan to survive the century. But something has gone wrong. You reach for the cord beside your bed, the one that rings for your handmaid. It dangles untouched. You give it a sharp tug. Once, twice, the bell should chime faintly down the hall. But again, silence. You push back the blankets. You sit fully up, heart thudding in your ribs like a footman knocking with urgency, and then it hits you, the air, the scent of something gone sweet and wrong. The kind of smell that hovers near illness. Beneath it, wax. Beneath that, rosewater. Your skin, perhaps, or the pillow beneath your cheek. The layers are indistinguishable. So much of your life is perfumed decay. You rise. Your nightgown clings to your skin with the cool sweat of half. Fevers. The floor is colder than usual. The hem of your gown whispers across it like ghost breath. No one comes. And so, you open your door yourself, a soft scrape of wood on wood, and peek into the corridor that links your apartments to the upper drawing room. There are shoes in the hall. Shoes, still lined in a row, some with little slivers of crushed lavender tucked into them. But no feet, no legs, no maids bustling through with towels or honey cakes or silver combs. Only dust floating in a shaft of morning light. You feel it again, that silence, weighted now, not absence, but aftermath. Your stomach curls, you step back into your chambers, pull the door shut. Something has happened, and you wonder not for the first time if the danger had been lying flat after all, or if the poison had come in through the air, the skin, the routine. You dress without help. It takes longer than you expect, and you fumble the fastenings of your stays more than once. But eventually your silhouette reshapes itself into something passable. The flattened chest, the long falling sleeves, the brocade too heavy for your frame. Your shoes feel wrong on your feet. Your hair is wrong on your head. But you are dressed, and the moment you open the door again, the world has resumed. A maid with pale lips scurries past you, not noticing your stillness. A page boy trips over himself with a tray of dried rose hips. Someone is singing softly in a room nearby. The bell you rang has been forgotten. It was a pause, not a death, but something has changed. You walk the corridor slowly. The painting of St. Catherine at the wheel watches you pass. Her face is the same as yours, not by accident. The painter had been told to use your likeness to make you holy by proxy. It was meant to comfort you. Now it chills you, because her neck is bent at the same angle yours would be, were it not for the rigid pillows you sleep against each night. You descend the stairs, every step echoing too sharply. In the main salon, the Countess of Tremoille sits like a carved statue, a lace ruff biting her jaw, her eyes watery from the crushed violets she pinched into her nose. She offers you a faint smile, the kind shared between women who know the tricks of beauty are just cages with prettier paint. "I heard," she says softly, as if you already know what news she brings. "Lady Louise's liver failed. They say she'd taken to swallowing pearls with her broth." You nod, though you hadn't known, another name added to the list. Another elegant death, another body arranged upright in her chair so she could be buried as she lived poised, preserved, and not quite at peace. You do not ask why, you know. You take a sugared fig from the silver tray. It tastes of perfume and rot. That night, you do not sleep sitting up. You try, but the posture is unbearable, now absurd, like mimicking the living while courting the dead. You throw off the straps. You throw off the pillows. You lie flat on the bed, scandalous as a corpse. Your heartbeat sounds different this way, slower, realer. The shadows on the ceiling look like cracks in old frescoes. You do not die in the night. Nor in the morning, but at breakfast the court physician walks by your chair, sees the puff beneath your eyes, and prescribes a tincture made from lead and vinegar. For brightness, he says, to keep you shining. You nod, though you won't drink it. You have learned by now to pour such gifts into the potted rosemary when no one is looking. The plant always dies within the week. Still, it's safer than refusing. Refusing raises questions. Refusing means illness. Hysteria, treatment. A letter arrives by noon from your cousin in Vienna. She writes in tiny, cramped script, trying to save parchment. She speaks of a new paste made from white arsenic and crushed lily bulbs. The Duchess there swears by it. Her skin is described as pure as snow, with a softness that glows like moonlight on milk. You trace the words with your thumb and feel the echo of a ghost. You wonder how many women across Europe, in how many dim candle-lit rooms, are whispering the same recipes to each other, not because they want to die, but because no one wants to fade. Your cousin ends the letter with love. And a postscript. I've started sleeping in a tilted chair. It keeps the blush from settling too low in my cheeks. You fold the letter and press it into the drawer beneath your mirror. Beside it lies your ribboned sitting, sleep contraption half unraveled. You leave it there, for now. Outside your window a hawker calls out. Moths, moths in your linens, who will save the silk from ruin. You look down at the garden below. A woman stands by the fountain with a basket of mint and sage. Her face is bare of powder. Her hands are red from work. And yet she smiles, something in her posture free of curvature, of stiffness of paint. You do not know her station. She might be a laundress. She might be mad, but she is not sitting up in her sleep, and she is not swallowing pearls to gleam brighter in the eyes of dying men. You wonder, for one long moment, what it would feel like to lie on grass. No padding, no posture, just earth and bone. You return to your chair. You take up your embroidery. You stab the needle through cloth. Over and over and over again. You sit very still, like a bird that suspects the forest has gone quiet for a reason. Your corset creaks softly as the last of the night candles burns down into the plate, leaving a rim of molten wax around its brass base. The room is warm, though the fire has died, and your body, once trained to stay upright like a tightly laced fence post, now feels strangely weightless. Not relaxed, just uncertain, as though the invisible rules keeping you vertical might finally let go. The bed is behind you, fluffed, layered, piled with lavender sachets and goose-down promises. But you do not lie down. Because you never did, because good women didn't, because one mistake, one slouch, one collapsed breath, one forgetful moment could spell disaster, so you stay, as you always have, sitting upright, chin forward. Palms folded in your lap like the statue of some minor saint who died from a cause no one remembers. You think, perhaps, this is how your mother looked at the end. You were too young to fully remember her last night, except that she too sat up in her own dark room, hair plaited, arms loose, dress lined with vinegar, washed lace to stop her from sinking too far into the mattress. And you remember the phrase she whispered before you left the room, "Lie down like a commoner and you'll wake up like one." You hadn't understood then, you do now. The court is quieter than usual. There are rumors that the French ambassador is sick. That someone bled him by candlelight in a stable because the doctor was late. That Queen Margaret has begun to weep for no reason, and that she hasn't left her chair in 2 days. It's always chairs, isn't it? Chairs you must sit in, chairs you must not sink into, thrones that demand presence, stools that punish stillness, chaises too wide, too soft, too dangerous. You recall the chambermaid's gossip, how one duchess slipped backward in her velvet cradle and was found hours later, mouth slack, pink froth on her chin. Her lungs filled, they'd whispered, with what? Someone asked. With a sin of sleep, came the answer. You think that's probably not medical, but in 16th century Europe, what is, tonight, you did something small, something shameful. You closed your eyes for too long. Not asleep, not fully, but more than a blink, and your head tilted slightly, forward like a heavy rose breaking its own stem. You jerked upright the moment your chin touched your chest, and for a heartbeat you panicked. Not because you feared suffocation, but because you feared being seen. The lady in waiting had already turned away. You're not sure if she noticed, but she'd been watching you closely all week. They all have. One by one, they begin to smell decay in others the way dogs smell storms. You can feel them waiting for your collapse. You think about the physician who came last month. He had warm fingers, a rare quality in a man who dealt mostly in leeches and tinctures. He asked if you'd been experiencing heaviness. Not grief, not fatigue. He didn't say sadness, just heaviness, a word that didn't sound medical until he said it. You said no, but you wanted to say yes, and I've been carrying it in my ribs, in my back, in the hollow between shoulder blades where women keep the screams they never make. You didn't say that, of course. You just sipped the anise cordial and nodded. He gave you a small vial of clove, soaked resin, told you to rub it under your nostrils before sleeping. It will remind you to keep breathing, he said. And yet, every night you forget. Outside your window, the moon is a dirty coin, not full, not sharp, just enough light to see by if you wanted to escape. But escape to where? You imagine a world where you could lie flat on your back without fear, where sleep was not a posture but a place, where women didn't die in lace because they couldn't breathe, where beauty didn't require scaffolding and silence didn't mean survival. You wonder if such a place ever existed, or ever will. And then you laugh very quietly, because even if it did, you wouldn't know what to do with it. What would you do with a pillow if it didn't have rules? They say that when noblewomen of your station pass away sitting up, they are easier to dress for burial. The body does not have to be lifted, the corset can stay on. The face requires only light powdering as the blood settles low, far from the cheeks. They say that the grave accepts upright women more willingly, as though it too respects discipline. You try not to think about whether that's true, but you do wonder what it feels like to finally let the spine collapse, to let gravity win, to fall backward without fear of being seen as lazy, or weak, or dead before you're dead. There are footsteps in the hall, a soft knock, a tray being set down, your evening broth, cold by now. You will not drink it, because warm liquid weighs more than air, because too much broth pools in the lungs, because the physicians warn that the final mistake of many noblewomen is the kindness of warm soup. You stare at the bowl, then turn your face away. There's a letter on the dresser, unopened. It's from your cousin in Florence, who says the women there sleep differently. That they sleep sideways like cats, that they use pillows made from olive husks and do not wear corsets to bed, that some of them dream, out loud, without shame. She writes with a kind of wickedness. Not disobedience, just softness. You haven't replied. You're not sure what you would say, but you think of her often. And sometimes you imagine Florence as a place that smells like oranges and breathes like a city not afraid of women's lungs. The hour is very late now. No one will come again until morning, if you moved, just slightly. You might lie back against the bolster, not fully, not flat, just enough to feel what the mattress might offer. But then again, someone might hear. What if your head tilts too far? What if the vinegar lace fails? What if the world notices? What if you never sit up again? You look at your own hands, at the skin pulled tight from years of stretching for unreachable standards, at the rings you were told to wear because they shaped the fingers, at the nails you've buffed until the pink was gone. You rest your palm against your stomach. It feels foreign, not yours, just an organ you carry around. For a moment you want to breathe deep, past the corset, past the chemise, past the rules, and you try, you truly do. You inhale through your nose, feel the sharpness of clove, hold it in, and then exhale. The fire has gone out completely now. The shadows have swallowed the rugs, and the candle is a stub. You close your eyes only for a moment. Your head tilts, no one sees, no one knocks, no one scolds. And for the first time in perhaps 30 years, you do not sit back up, but that was a story for another night.